get together with me and a bunch of other influencers. Drew showed us this cool platform, Spaces, which allows you to put on these VR goggles and then inject yourself into this VR auditorium in which you're given a keynote. And on the keynote is a really cool, it's a really, really cool, like Inception-like moment where your avatar is pointing to like a Zoom conversation or some screen share going on that prompted the original conversation. And then how could we use this in a virtual conference setting? And then Drew said, hey, you know what? Why don't we live stream this? I'm like, you know what? Why not? Why not? I'm paying all this money for Social Live. Drew, Social Live is like $179 a month to be able to stream. I think we're streaming to Twitter, Facebook, both my Facebook accounts, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So you get the whole CTO Advisor audience all in one.
I love it. I'm sharing all of it, man. I guess my meager group of followers and whatnot. I just put all that out there, but yeah, man, it's, you know what, Keith, when you did the virtual CTO conference, man, that was really cool because, and I did try to reach out to you on it because I want to make sure that we're all looking at this not as the status quo, this whole new normal thing. It's just weird. I don't know how many calls you've been on where you're staring at a whole bunch of boxes on the screen, and I've been on my share of them. There's so much that's going on. It's a great way to communicate and interact and whatever, but it's really lacking something. And it's not even that personal connection of having somebody in the room. It's just lacking the ability to conversate with someone, and in the keynotes, you and I have sat together side by side at a number of these keynotes, from all kinds of different vendors. And part of the conversation and part of what drives the thought process of innovation is turning to the person beside you and saying, hey man, what do you think about that? Without interrupting what's going on. And in a Zoom conference, there's no way to side chat, right? There's the back channel is the chat window, or it's the, or the Twitter feed or whatever it is. And so when I started to look at this as a way to kind of alleviate that, it became really fun. And, I don't want to make this a commercial for a group, for Spaces, but what they've been able to do in the last 3 weeks, just with a little bit of innovation, a lot of development, has been pretty neat, man. So I definitely wanted to share it with you. And like you said, what better way than just, we'll do it live, right?
Well, we'll do it live. And you know what? Let's tempt fate. While let's just try this, man. Why don't you try to set up the goggles again and show people what the environment looks like? And while you're showing folks that, I'm gonna try and go to the Spaces website and just show them Spaces and what we had in mind, and then I'll kick around some ideas that I had while you're just trying to set up your goggles, because I think it will be really effective to show people the solution. So I'm going to take over the screen and put you in the background.
Yeah.
All right. So while
the screen or the room that you see back here, I love to have the camera in this position because I'm going to be walking around in this room. When you see me walking around in the virtual environment, that's why I have to keep my floor clean, right?
So just like any other virtual you kind of like, you have to have a VR room for walking around in the physical space so you don't bump into stuff and actually give the camera something to adjust to. Good point.
Now let me walk you through the hardware real quick. All I'm using is the Oculus Quest headset. This is the $400. This is the 64 gig version. It doesn't have any sensors in the room. It's got all the sensors built in. It doesn't require a computer to play games and use. But I am using the Oculus Link cable. And so what this does, or the Quest Link, this hooks up to my PC to take advantage of the horsepower of the PC to produce everything that we're doing. Now, hopefully in the future, we're not going to need this cable. Everything will just be in the headset alone. No external sensors, no computer needed. So it's a headset and these two handsets I'm going to be using to get this done. Cool.
All right. So you do that now. Entertain the masses with my musings.
That's
So
great.
while Drew is setting up the headset, you can see him kind of mucking around and moving around. One of the things that I visualized for the CTO Advisor conference moving forward is how do we integrate VR into the experience to give exactly that feel, but also how do we make it accessible? So we'll talk to Drew about some of their ideas about how to make this technology accessible, because I've seen some really cool stuff done with VR in the enterprise IT conferencing space in general. For example, during Dell Power One's launch, the Power One team had created a virtual reality environment or virtual reality map of the Power One system. So you could put on goggles and go into a VR room, and you could pull the chassis, pull slots out of the Power One. You could actually see the platform. It's a really, really interesting model. So you might ask yourself, well, Keith, you're in the room. Why don't they just show you the Power One? Well, Drew naturally came up with this whole concept that what happens if you're our friends in Power One, Connor Duffy, who sponsored some Power One content over on the CTO Advisor CTO Dose. What if you're in the mode we're in now? We're in COVID lockdown. Connor's in Toronto. I'm in Chicago. I'm a customer. I want to see power. I want to see this unit. I can put on VR goggles and kind of can walk me through this. So, you think of it from a sales perspective, but also we'll get into kind of the use case that Drew brought me in for, which was for conferencing, because I'm putting on virtual conferences. Drew, how's it?
Can you hear me, Keith?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So you can hear me. I can hear you. I'm in the virtual world staring at a virtual camera. And what you see is the avatar that I have right here. First of all, I'm practicing safety. I'm in the virtual world mask on. But what we have here is this is an avatar. I took a picture of me with my cell phone. I faced it at my face, took a picture, and I uploaded it to Lumi. So I can get in and I can choose different avatars based on how I look that day or whatever it is. But this is actually a render of me that ties into this. So as many people as you want can actually use this and interact with it. So, okay, good. You can hear me. You can see me. Everything's good to go, right?
Yep. I think the only, maybe the only thing your audio was just a little choppy.
Yeah, it's chopped up a little bit for me also. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. Give me a second here. It may just... I got a couple different processes running on the computer here, so let me try and shut one or two of them down.
All right. So
cool.
Wow.
So let's see if that works. Is that any better for you?
Slightly. Let's go on a little bit. If it's still too choppy, I'll let you know.
Okay, I can restart it if I need to. So let me give you a quick tour with the camera here. So I can take this camera and I can drag it around. And what you see behind me is I'm actually looking at my computer desktop right here. I've got a whiteboard in the background that I can use. I've got little video screens to show me what I'm looking at, and then I have a whole series of tools that I can use here. So if you look at this whiteboard, I can come over and I can pick up a marker, and I can draw on this whiteboard in VR. I can throw that marker and get rid of it, and it's good to go. Now, did that work, or is this chopping up for you? Oh, I don't know. You're muted, Keith. I can't hear you. It was muted on the screen there. Did I lose you? You're muted there.
All right. So now I can hear myself. All right. So, all right. Can you hear me now?
Hey, can you hear me there, Keith?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well, that's part of it, right? Is trying to figure out the right way to to get it done. I don't know. Can you hear me on here?
I can hear you fine. So you sound good. I don't know if you can hear me. You should be able to hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Well, I can't hear you. I don't know.
Oh, I was muted. You couldn't hear me because I was muted.
But basically, what happens is sometimes my web browser crashed out on me. I'm using the web browser as a client for the virtual meeting, so it just bonked out on me there. I'm going to try and go ahead and restart it and see if it comes back up. Chrome has an issue every once in a while, but when you're messing with this much horsepower on a meeting, sometimes it's good to make sure that it's all set up the right way using the right client. So give me a second here.
So while Drew is doing that, this goes to example one, why it wasn't ready for us to try this. And also show hard. But I think you guys can start to get the drift of where I would like to take CTO Advisor virtual conferences. I'm kind of in this mode that not good enough is not perfect is not good enough, and I'm trying to do a balance between what's good enough versus good enough versus what's not ready, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Drew back into the conversation. So Drew, can you hear me?
All right.
Hey, all right. So you're here.
Here we go, man. Let's see here. Just having a little bit of fun here today, folks.
It is fun.
Hey, can you hear me over there, Keith?
Yes, I can.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. I can hear you. So I've got the headset on. I'm making sure that everything's set up the right way. It's not chopping up as much as it was before. So I'm going to go ahead and try and switch this camera back over into VR. So can you hear me?
I can hear you still.
Cool. Okay. So look, I'm a female now. And you can see me back in this environment. Is it still chopping up pretty bad, or is
No, actually it sounds really good.
Okay, cool, man. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change back over here. I'm going to go back to the I'm going to get something a little bit more fitting for me. I'll be a businessman today, or a bard. But to give you an idea is, you can change your avatars back and forth. And as I was mentioning before, I can have it set up so that it's me, so that it's a likeness of me, so it's someone who doesn't look anything like me. There's a number of different ways that I can set it up. And in this room, I have a couple of different things that I can mess with. First of all, you see the whiteboard behind me. And again, I can go back and I can get a marker. And as I say, I can draw just as bad in the virtual world as I can draw poorly in the real world. So there's a smiley face for you. But one of the coolest things is you can just throw the marker and it automatically goes back to where it's supposed to. But the whole concept is that you can have a whiteboard in the room with you. So if you need to make annotations or do something, you can give that type of presentation. But if I reach up and I grab the camera and I turn it around, you see that while I'm talking to you, I'm actually looking at the screen of the meeting. So I can see your face here. I can see what I'm presenting on the other side. And this is actually my desktop on my computer. So I can launch applications. I can get into different things. I can put on a PowerPoint presentation. I can do a slideshow. Any of that, any of the content that I can put on my computer, I can supply that here in the virtual environment. And then I can take the little screen, and what's great about it is you can just rearrange the room how you see fit. There's handles that are on all these little screens. So if you want to put the presentation in the background and then have have the PowerPoint on one side and then have your whiteboard on another, that's one way to do this. So from a teaching perspective or a teaching environment, you can do a lot of neat stuff where if it's a class lesson that you want to give, it really talks to that. But what's cool is I can get in and I can change things. Like if I just want to change the entire environment and I want to get off this deal and go into a, let's see, where should I go? I want to go into more of a webinar format. Now you can see that everything's changed. That's a little different. Can you see that okay?
I can see that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, right? So I can go and I've got my camera in one location. I can walk towards my camera. There's a couple of options where I can set up different screens behind me, different content I need. I can scoot around the room so I can get closer to the camera. I can take the camera and move it over to the other side so that now you see a whole different environment behind me. But there's a lot of things that I can do where it allows me to show off, everything from a PowerPoint presentation to a real world demo to something that's happening in the background. I can bring video feeds into this, so this can actually be a video feed behind me. And then as we mentioned, I heard you talking about it a little, we can even take widgets like this little guy right here. This is just a little widget that's included to show off this capability. But imagine this was the latest processor from Intel or the latest, hard drive or whatever it is. I can take that and I can, hand it to you. I can walk up and let me see if I can get a little closer. I'm walking around my room here. But you can take this and you can twist it. You can turn it around. You can look at it. And if you're in the virtual world, I can take that unit and I can hand it to you. So now you can take it and put it in your lap. You can look at it. You may not see what the weight of it feels like, right? But you can take it and you can throw it at each other. There's a lot of neat things you can do. And I think that adds a level of at least fun to being able, trying to grab my camera here, to being able to interact with people in a way that you couldn't do it before. And it's not just about, turning to your side and seeing somebody and taking out presentation. But dude, just think about what we're doing right here, man. I'm standing in my room in Texas in a virtual environment. I've got a widget that I can hand you that you can take off, turn, and twist. And at the same time, I've got live video feeds in the background. I have everything else. So that's one of the concepts that they have in here. Now, we go to the one that I think is the cool. Go ahead. What's up?
And to kind of reinforce what we're doing here, you're in Texas. I'm in Illinois. And I'm live switching this. It's just me and you. There is no third party. There's nobody in the background switching this, doing this. This is just using two SaaS platforms to deliver this concept. We're at the same time, I'm streaming over LinkedIn, Facebook, 2 accounts on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope and Twitter. And this is like we literally, you pinged me about an hour ago on LinkedIn. You say, hey, Keith, let's have a quick chat. And basically a couple of ad hoc solutions later, we're doing this, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's pretty. Let me give you a tour of the newsroom over here. So, I can do the weather. But what's really neat, I think the cool part about it is, even though I'm standing here and I've got this headset on my face, and we'll flip back over to it. It's just a basic headset. I've got a 3-year-old in the other room, who's watching Blippi. I've got, my wife who's on a conference call. I've got my daughter who's doing her homework. But here I am in an environment that looks and feels like a studio set. And it doesn't stop with just the avatar. The avatar is really what you want to make it. So if I want to go in, this one looks kind of cool, but if I want to go in and make it something more like me, I can definitely do that. If I want to, let's see. There you go. Let's turn it into Trevor. Yeah, if I want to look like Trevor, I can look like Trevor, And so you can really change everything about the way that you are in this environment. And more importantly, if you can see here, this is the news desk. But how cool would it be to take this and then to say, instead of just doing it in the traditional way we did it, let's do it like this. And let's bring Keith in. Let's put Keith on one side and me on another side. And then we can do an entire set of, some type of interview or whatnot. So that brings me to my next one, which is my favorite environment when I talk about the things like you and I had talked about, because your virtual conference really blew my mind, man. The fact that you were able to get, so much stuff happening there is just it's really awesome. And what I think is great about it is now you can take that same conference and you can put it in this huge virtual environment. So behind me, I've got a big screen up. I'm standing on a stage. Now you can see the entire room that I'm in right now. I'm in this big theater. I've got a stage out in front of me. I can produce a keynote the same way that I would from anyone else. I can cycle back and forth through cameras so you can see my desktop behind me. If I blew you up full screen, you could be a featured presenter. I can go into the handheld cam mode right here. But what I'm doing is I have all these different camera angles that are out in the audience that I can switch back and forth to. And it gives me a good way to change the perspective on what's going on. And then to look and see, that I can bring in featured content. So there's a lot of really neat things that can be done in this environment when you talk about producing a keynote, which I think is pretty cool, man. What do you think about that?
So one of the things I really like about this whole concept, so why you show the virtual room with, this abstraction of your physical presence from the room itself, but giving us familiar constructs. So if you think about it, everyone could be in the front row. Like everyone in the room could literally be in the first two rows, have that camera perspective, but be anywhere in the world. So,
That's right.
So I can look to my left and my right and see completely different people, but I'm I'm just disoriented thinking about it. So when smart people start to think about this and apply it to mass conferencing or mass virtual conferences, I think the potential of what can be done is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. And there's some automated stuff that happens in here so you can fly around the room, give you big news, big, information, or I can just, stare at different things. But I think the whole idea is that you can take a keynote and like you said, not only be able to be in the front row, and stick you really right up front with everybody that's there, but also gives you the ability to produce that element of full production. You can have your video crew, you can have your effects crew, you can have everybody design out where these camera locations are to add emphasis where you need to add emphasis, to draw out the scene where you need to draw out the scene, but make it so that's more than just staring at a box on a screen. And I think, to me, that's the important part, because I think something like this really gives you the opportunity to interact more and engage more, but it still gives you the ability to turn around. And when you do have people sitting in the front row, I can turn and look at you and turn my head and say, man, Keith, did you hear what he just said? That's crazy. And you can have that side chat going on at the same time while everything's happening. And I think, to me, that's really cool, because that gives you the ability to interact not just with the person beside you, but with the overall event as it's happening. So it's pretty cool, man. I mean, this stuff's come such a long way in such a short amount of time. They have a Discord that's online right now. You can join the Discord. You can ask for, feature requests. You can say, hey, it would be cool if you could do this or add this or change that. The software is called Spaces, and believe it or not, right now it's free. If you go to spaces.com, you can download the software. If you have a VR headset, you can do it. You can use it as a camera going into either Zoom or WebEx or Teams or whatever it is. You can feed into it through Spaces. And then the Pro version, which includes all of this and all these great, auto camera things and, the dolly cameras and everything that's happening. The Pro version of this is only $30 a month for right now. And so it's kind of a neat way to do it. This is a company that really was having, they've done a lot of really cool stuff. But now what they have is, because of COVID, they develop a lot of video games, and they've developed a lot of AR and VR functionality. So they had thrown this together, the concept of this, in a couple of days as a way to interact with each other. And now this is software that's helping them save their company because they've made it available to everybody. So it's pretty awesome, man.
So I'm going to check it out. So, like, in my mind, what I want to try and do is I want to put on a virtual announcement. So think of, our Tech Field Day type friends. So tomorrow we're going to do Tech Field Day extra for Red Hat OpenShift Summit. And just think if, me and my virtual delegates are around a virtual roundtable, and we're getting presented to, and we all have on these VR goggles, and we can have that back channel that we don't have now that we're virtual. We can have this back channel where we're talking to each other, and then the presenter can't hear us in theory, and then
That's right.
having this, and we're bringing in all the presenters from all over the world to come present their solution to us. I think that's the art of the possible. And it's quite amazing once you think about it.
Yeah, I really think that's really cool because, if you look and again, you can just flip environments. One of the neat things that you can do is like, there's some tables back there. There's some virtual people walking. One of the cool things that you can do is you can load up Sketchfab, and with Sketchfab, you can come in and you can build in your own environment. So let's say that the Foskett wanted to make his own keynote stage, and this is the Tech Field Day keynote stage. He could build this entire thing himself, or have a graphic designer or developer build this. And if they do build it, then they can turn around and they can load this in so that everybody can actually see what it's like to be on the delegate table. So you're not limited by anything other than your imagination and what you want to do in the 3D environment. And this is something that I've talked to a couple of vendors about already, vendors that you and I are pretty familiar with. I said, I want to be there. I want to be at your conference, because I feel like when people go to a conference, they don't just go to blog about it or to write about it. They go because they want to interact, man. Like there's the crowd back there behind me. They want to sit in the audience, and they want to feel like they are part of something impactful. They feel like they're somewhere where they can change the world. And I feel like you lose that when you're staring at a screen and you can't look at someone and go, wow, or you can't look at somebody and say, that was incredible. I really think that you lose a lot of that when you don't have the ability to really feel like you're there. And this is the closest that a lot of us are going to get for a while to being around other people, with everything that's going on. And you can see this is so cool. Like it's ridiculous because I'm standing in a room in my office in Texas, and I'm staring up, and like my arms are raised up in the air, and I'm looking up at the screen because there's your face. You know what I mean? And you start to really forget that you're focusing in a virtual environment, and you start to go, man, I can see how this can be pretty neat. You know what I mean? So the other thing that I wanted to add to this is that, it's not just about this environment. This is my favorite one. But what I think is really neat is if you smash those things together, right, and you have the ability to then go into a trade show floor, and you have a booth and a booth and a booth, and you're able to teleport, right? I can teleport around this stage. Hey, I'm over here. Or, hey, I'm over here. If you can teleport in a virtual trade show environment, that means I can teleport to somebody's booth. And if I can teleport to their booth, and they're standing in the booth, then I can talk to them, and they can talk to me, and I can hear them without hearing everything else around me. I may hear some ambient noise, but at the same time, you can have 20 different vendors sitting in their houses with these headsets on, and answering questions and fielding questions from people all day. And I think that that's pretty awesome, because what that gives you the ability to do is not just connect on a one-to-one basis. Go see the keynote, take 10 minutes to go outside, or 20 minutes or whatever for the whole day. Just set it up so that the booths are working somewhere. Talk to them. Grab the little, where's my little widget? Let's see. Grab the little widget, that's here. And pick up my little widget. Grab the little widget, take it, throw it at them, and let them get hands-on with it, so that now people really have the ability to not just see and talk, but interact. Like, hey, man, check it out. This is the latest thing. The latest hard drive, the latest wireless access point. Here's a 3D model of a computer, of a server, of a chip. Let's go take a virtual cruise, fly through, the motherboard, make it look like like Star Wars. There's so many things that can be done when you start to really let your mind open up and think about, what a virtual environment means. And I think, to me, that's the most impressive part about all of this is if all of this can be done in 3 weeks, dude, imagine where we're going to be in 3 months.
Yeah, man, that is really cool. So what's the website for people to check out, like what's available for free and what's like out there now? What spaces.com?
Yes, spaces.com. I'm going to jump out of the, I'm going to get back in the real world here for a second before I lose my mind. Woo. But yeah, spaces.com is, switch back over to this mic. Can you hear me there okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So yeah, spaces.com is where it is. I mean, it's, dude, this thing is so crazy. It's so crazy. So crazy. Spaces.com. If you jump online, if you get on my LinkedIn or your LinkedIn, I know you've shared some of the stuff on there. There's a guy named Brad who's been putting a lot of work and development into it. And his whole team over there at Spaces, they're based out in Culver City, and this is just a group of innovative people working from home, trying to come up with crazy creative ideas. But to me, it's about the possibility of this in the future, because it's not, once this blows over, assuming that it will, and assuming there's something that happens, then I love going out to eat Indian food with you. You know what I mean? But at the same time, doing stuff like this that can bring us together, I think that's the key. Is what are we doing right now? What is this entire industry doing to bring people together, or to leverage technology so that we don't have to get on planes, so that we can be quicker, we can be more responsive, we can be more efficient? This whole thing was born out of what you see behind me, and which is crazy. If I could talk about that for just a second, that kit that's there has a mobile router in it, and it's connected to that camera up there. Now, it's not virtual, that's a real camera. But the reason that that's here is I'm working with a customer on an incredible project, and I didn't want to lose momentum with where we were. And part of the next phase was to do a physical installation of some devices. But those devices have to be installed in very specific locations in order to leverage real-time location services. And they're wireless access points, or sensors, right? And I knew that I had to be there to understand where they were going to be installed. And if they were moved, I had to be there to see where they were going to be moved, so I could mark it on the map and make sure that my trilateration worked perfectly, so I would know where these devices are. But I couldn't be there, especially because of COVID. So conceptually, I said, man, how awesome would it be to take a 360-degree camera, like it's laying around here somewhere. I don't know, I lost it. How cool would it be to take a 360-degree camera, stick it on a tripod, and then use VR to get in there? And so what the kit behind me you see is exactly that. I can take that camera and I can stick it in that box with a battery and a connection to Verizon or AT&T or both. I can ship it out to the customer site. They turn it on, they put it on the tripod, and it immediately starts feeding video back into VR. Now, not only can I view what they're doing, but I can draw on the walls and I can mark it up. And instead of being that big keynote stage behind me, it's actually a video of the real world environment. So I have a demo of that on my LinkedIn page. But it was that led to one thing, that led to another, man. So.
All right, man. So we both have 1:00 meetings that we have to get to. But that was pretty cool, man. I appreciate you reaching out to me about it. And there's some other stuff that I wanted to talk to you about that we didn't get to. I pitched this to my wife right after you pitched it to me. I pitched it to my wife and a friend of hers about doing distance learning, using this to do distance learning. And think just global classroom, people from Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and the US all getting together in one classroom to be taught. So, think about primary education, secondary education, professional development, etc. The juices got flowing. But we got to go, man. This was fun.
Yeah,
I'll catch you.
Hold on. Let me add one more thing real quick. One cool concept here is with this, it's not just about being in the virtual environment. Whoever the presenter is, we can take real world video and superimpose it on that virtual video, so that whoever's giving the presentation, they don't have to be in VR. They can just be standing in their room with cameras and a green screen, and that video can be fed in so that everybody can view it as if they're there, but the video is actually coming from someone in the real world. So just something to chew on there, man.
All right, man. For those of you that stood this whole time listening to me and Drew just shoot the breeze, tell me what you think about this. Do you want to see more content like this? If you do, we'll keep producing it because it was a fun conversation to have.
Yeah, man.
All right,
yeah,
folks.
Thanks for having me.